first-time listeners and returners to the Sports Deli. To find out more about the Sports Deli Podcast, check us out online at thesportsdelipodcast.com. And whether you're folding laundry, driving, exercising, or cooking, grab your favorite deli sandwich or bagel and your favorite beverage, and let's do this together in the Sports Deli. Hey everyone, gentlemen. Before we do our formal intro of Coach Harrick and Coach Wooden, welcome to the Sports Deli. John, good to see you. Taking a break from the final stages of your EDD PhD program that you're doing, that you've been doing for the past 18 months. Coach Harrick is back in the Sports Deli. Great to have you back, Coach.
Hoot.
What's up, Coach?
How are you, brother?
I'm good. What's going down?
Oh, just chilling. Great July day.
Coach is using the lingo here, the new
How
age
you
lingo.
doing?
I'm good. We finally convinced, got John out of his.
Hey, Coach, how are you?
His hole.
Good. Hi, how are you?
Good.
Wow. Thanks for Coach Wooden, Frank Arnold in the background,
Yeah?
Yes, sir.
Gary Cunningham standing up,
Yeah?
the redhead right there.
Yeah, you got above it. There we go.
Ooh, there we go. Yeah, buddy. Live and well.
There you go.
Back in the Sports Deli. I love it. Coach, how's the summer going?
Good.
We're excited to have you again to talk about the Wizard of Westwood, and John's a walking almanac, so he will be a huge part of tonight's
All right, John.
discussion.
Hit me with some questions.
Okay, I got some for you.
He's ready, Coach. We're so honored to welcome back former UCLA head coach Jim Harrick, who led his 1995 Bruins to its 11th national championship. Coach Harrick was born in Charleston, West Virginia. He made his way to Morningside High School in Los Angeles, where he started his coaching career while driving his 1960 stick shift Chevy with no radio, no heater, and no air. We have brought Coach back on today to talk about the legendary coach John Wooden, the Wizard of Westwood. John Robert Wooden was born in Hall, Indiana, and played his collegiate basketball at Purdue, where he was a three-time consensus All-American. He coached some unbelievable players like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Bill Walton, arguably two of the greatest collegiate players of all time, who Bill called his greatest mentor in his life. He won 10 National Collegiate Athletic Association national championships in a 12-year period as head coach for the UCLA Bruins, including a record 7 in a row. Before that, he was a coach at Indiana State long before Larry Bird arrived in Terre Haute, Indiana. At one point, he won 88 games in a row and was named National Coach of the Year 7 times. But long before that, he was a high school coach and would have stayed there if he had not enlisted in the service. He shares a birthday with Usher, Dwight D. Eisenhower, Ralph Lauren, Stephen A. Smith, and George Floyd. When Coach Wooden was 99 when he passed away, but just before his death, a lifelong learner, he was doing a deep dive, according to former UCLA head coach Steve Lavin, into religions, trying to find a common thread. In 2009, Wooden was named the Sporting News greatest coach of all time. He was married to his incredible wife, Nellie, who he adored, and they met in high school and were married until 1985. He wrote several books, and coaches had a multi-generational and layered impact on coaches, not only in basketball, but in other sports, broadcasters, and Fortune 500 CEOs like Golden State Warriors general manager Bob Myers, Steve Kerr, Dick Vitale, Jay Billis, Shaq, current UCLA women's basketball coach Corey Close, and so many more like Coach Harrick. Coach Harrick overcame the pressures that accompany being at UCLA and the expectations that were expected after being one of the successors after the Wooden years. Coach Harrick used to meet with Coach Wooden 3 times a month at the old Coco's restaurant, and most of what UCLA ran was from those meetings. Coach Wooden had 3 rules: no profanity, don't criticize a teammate, and never be late. And Coach, you would always say, even at our camps, be on time when time's involved. And it's cliche and it sounds benign, but it was really important to Coach Wooden and you.
Hoot, everything I'll talk about tonight is probably out of John Wooden's mouth. And he made this statement: you never learn anything that you haven't learned from someone else. And what a great teacher. I started my coaching in 1964, the year he won the national championship. Loved the way he played and just said, hey, I'm patterning myself after him. I'm going to every clinic, every practice. And I went to hundreds of practices and took notes. I still got the notes and watched him. And I'll never forget, I became the head basketball coach at Morningside High School. And in my 5th game, I went over to Sherman Oaks High School. We had a game. They had a good player. We had a good player. And the team came over and I gave them, they went out on the floor to jump ball. And I turned around to sit down and looked. And 4 rows behind my seat was John Wooden. I'm coaching my 5th game in high school, and he just won his 7th national championship. But he couldn't have been more gracious. He came down, and never one time, after that meeting, after that game, did he not know my name and know me my name. But fortunately, by that summer, I became the first director of the John Wooden basketball camps. I had worked for the guy before, and he hooked up with Coach Wooden, and we started him out at Cal Lutheran. And right. We used to work about 6 weeks a summer, which was grueling because it was all day. But we had 30, 40, 50 coaches. We had a long table for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And Coach sat there, and I sat right across from him. I told the guys, hey, you guys ask him questions. And the questions came and came and came. And we all who got a master's degree in coaching from that summer camp. And, he had little things like don't step on the grass. And I know a lot of people have heard the story about the socks, getting the wrinkles out of the socks. Well, I'm going to tell you about that. We all grew up, including me, playing in Converse, canvas, high tops. That's all there were. So your foot would slip. There was no siding at all to stop an ankle or anything. So it got to the point where I would wear 2 and sometimes 3 pair of socks. And sometimes you'd get wrinkles in them and you'd get a blister. And that's the only thing we had. So Coach, of course, he wanted to stop that. So the first day of practice, he showed him how to put these socks on to get your hands and roll them up your leg and make sure you don't have any wrinkles in them. But there was a reason for that. People make fun of it, but we all grew up, including me, playing in canvas, high tops, Converse, and they're so flimsy, it was unbelievable. Right. And that's what it came from. But he had his idiosyncrasies, and he was really something, but an unbelievable teacher. And Coach Wooden and I became great friends, along with him being my mentor, my teacher, my advisor. I used to call him and say, Coach, I need some advice. He'd go, Jim, I don't give advice. But he says, I do give opinions. And laugh. He was so funny, And I left after 4 years of running his camp. I left and got in college, became assistant. And then 4 years later, I came back and Coach had quit. Coach had retired. They had an office at UCLA. And now I'm the assistant at UCLA for Gary Cunningham. So I'd go in his office and sit and talk for hours. And he would come in my office. He was bored. He'd come in my office and we'd talk for hours. And he was doing a lot of speaking. I told him, I said, hey, Coach, I says, I'll drive you everywhere you go. So I became his chauffeur, taking him to speaking engagements and things. And wow. We became really close, talking about everything. And it was I remember we had a real good player, got drafted in the 2nd round. second player drafted, and he was 6'11" and really good, but he was a little overweight, and he didn't work quite as hard as I thought he should. So I go into Coach Wooden. I'm spitting and blabbering. And, Coach, this guy, he doesn't work hard enough. I mean, he's because himself money, he could do better, all that stuff, And finally, Coach Wooden got tired of hearing me talk, and he just folded his arms like he does. He says, Jim, would you rather have him or not have him? End of discussion. The wise man spoke, and that's the way he was. He was so wise. He would come up with these things that, like, shut up. What are you talking about? You're an idiot. And he didn't say that, but that's kind of the way you felt. But he was hilarious. He was funny. And boy, I tell you, I miss him. I love the guy. And I went out and got the Pepperdine job, and I would go over there maybe once a month and visit with him at his house. And I'll never forget when Nell, his wife, got sick. They had been married a long time. She got emphysema, and she was in and out of the hospital. And finally, she went back to the hospital for probably what we thought was the last time. And it was probably 3 months in a hospital. And I know my wife, Sally, and I would go over. And one night we went over and sat in the hospital. We just talked for 3 or 4 hours. And then a little bit later, another maybe while went by, and we went back again. And I'll never forget that. We sat there, my wife and I and Coach, because she had a respirator on. She couldn't speak. And we sat there for 2 hours, and no one ever said a word. We just sat there with him. And I know he really, really, really appreciated that. But he had gone to 35 straight NCAA tournaments with his wife, Nell, and he would not go again, Hoot. I kept telling Coach, all the young coaches in America want to see you, want to shake your hand, want to meet you, want to talk to you, want to ask you questions. Make yourself available. No, they wouldn't do it. So we beat Connecticut in the Elite Eight game. And it's a Saturday afternoon. We get on the plane, we come home. I get my car and I drive out to his house. He's got this where he has to let you through the gate and up the elevator. He lets me in. Stand in his doorway of his apartment. And, I didn't know what to expect, but I thought maybe it'd be, hey, Jim, congratulations. I'm happy for you, et cetera, So I'm walking down the walkway, and I come right up to his door, and he just says, no, I'm not going. He knew what I wanted before I even said it. And I just begged him and begged. And I went back Sunday, I went back Monday, I went back Tuesday. And boy, he's stubborn. Now, here's a stubborn man. And he wouldn't go. And finally, Arthur Anderson, the accounting firm, got him a speaking engagement in Seattle and was going to fly him privately. And that got him there. And I can't tell you how thrilled I was when he walks in the arena in Seattle for our games. Oh man, I still get cold chills thinking about it right now. I got it on tape, him walking in. I watch it once in a while, and that was really a thrill for me.
So you didn't know until he walked in that he was coming? Sports is sponsored by SportRx, the leader in sport prescription eyewear. You can find them online at sportrx.com. And don't forget to enter the code DELI10 at checkout for your special 10% discount. And now back to this incredible interview right here in the Sports Deli.
Well, I knew Wednesday was coming.
Oh,
I knew Wednesday, yeah. But boy, he wouldn't come before that, but he got a nice speaking engagement. And I'm sure they paid him well. But the kicker was he didn't want to get on a commercial flight. And they got him a private plane, and that kind of got it for him going. And absolutely, I used to go to his practices when I was a high school coach, and he was such a teacher and such a, the little thing. And I learned this from him. It's the little details that win for you, that make your podcast good, that make your team good, that make your sale good. make you a good father and a good, everything is the little details that take care of everything. And I learned that from him. And I learned everything from him, offense and defense. And we run not the only offense in the world, just the best. And it is. And I thank the Lord every day for the John Robert Wooden system of basketball, not the only way to play, just the best. It's predicated on fundamentals, team play, sharing the ball, hitting the open man, and playing sound, solid defense, and covers every aspect of the game: rebounding, transition offense, transition defense. And it served me well for years and years and years. And I ran the system in Morningside High School and Pepperdine, UCLA, Rhode Island, Georgia, and the Bakersfield Jam. And we same place, same stuff, and still works because it's called execution and knowing how to do it. And he was a master teacher. And,
I was going to say that 95 season must have been magical, not just to win it all, but him coming there. And then earlier in the season, you had driven by the Superdome to, show the kids that this is where you guys could be playing in April, so that's part of the collective memory that you have of that year. So all these layers, it just must be like the culmination of all of that. And looking back on it, it must just enhance the memories.
Well, there are good memories. And I'll tell you what's done. About a year ago, 2 years ago, year and a half ago, we had a Zoom call with 18 members of that team on it. And boy, the memories they had. And so the bonding that something like that gives you is just tremendous. And I can't, I can talk all night on John Wooden. It was just something very, very, very special. I'll never forget, I went over to his condo when he's 95 years old. And I said, Coach, what's up? He said, I'm busy. Just every day's busy. So somebody called him and said, hey, Coach, I want to visit with you. And he said, let me get my calendar. And he got his calendar. And I looked at it, I said, guys, Coach, you got 4 days open. He says, they'll be filled. I mean, every day he had something on his calendar every day at 95 years old. And you admire a guy like that. And he was so consistent with his breakfasts in the morning. I mean, I've had 100 breakfasts with him with people. And I would take people with me. We'd go have breakfast and go over his condo. And I brought him to Georgia. When the Final Four was in Atlanta one year, he flew into Georgia on I think a Wednesday night or Thursday night. And he spoke to 1,500 people at the auditorium. And I mean, people in Georgia still talking about him. He dazzled them. He went an hour and a half with no notes, nothing. I mean, he's an incredible speaker and a human being. And boy, I tell you, he was a one special guy.
John, go ahead.
Coach, I was curious, if you look at Coach Wooden's record, amazing, never had a losing season, but he gets to UCLA in 1948 and they win their first national title in 1964. What do you think and obviously they had success all the way building up to that point, but what do you think was the key to getting over the hump to going on the run from 64 to 75 with the 10 national titles?
Well, they went to their first Final Four in 62 and Gary Cunningham was their star. But before that, they had won the league. They'd won the league several times, maybe many times, and gone to the tournament, but not won it. In 55, 56, Bill Russell was there. And
San Francisco then.
And everybody, you played in your region in those days. So he had to come out of the West, and it was hard getting out of the West. Utah was good. BYU was good. Arizona State was good. And everybody says and credits the fact that he ran the full court press. And I'm not sure at the time everybody in America was ready for the full court press because the young kids weren't handling the ball like they do today and passing it and dribbling it. And he had a small team, a quick team, an athletic team. Gail Goodrich and Walt Hazard was two great guards. And they turned it on, and boy, that got them rolling. And then he wins one, then he wins another, and then he signs Kareem. And
Right, out of power.
and he sat out the freshman year. I remember Gary Cunningham telling me the story. They opened Poly Pavilion, and in '66, when Kareem was a freshman. So the freshman team, coached by Gary Cunningham, had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Lynn Shackelford and Lucius Allen, and they played the varsity. And Gary Cunningham says he looks down there, he's got him down 15 with about 10 minutes left in the game. He says, "I'm getting nervous." And Wooden was really mad until he got in the locker room. He always told me, he says, "I looked real mad." He says, "But I was really smiling." Because he knew what he had. He knew what he had. Yeah. Wow. And then, they went 3 years, and then they got Walton. And you say he had all the talent in the world, but 5 of the years he won it with talent everybody else had too. Right. With Goodrich and Hazard and Wicks and Rowe and Patterson and those guys. Then he won it with Richard Washington and Marcus Johnson.
Can you talk about a guy that doesn't seem to get a lot of attention on his teams is Mike Warren? And he's gone on to be an actor and big in the Hollywood industry, and he's got a son who's actually married to Jessica Alba. But just talk about the impact Mike Warren had on those teams. And, because he didn't go play professional, many people may not know him as well as the big names that you just mentioned.
Mike Warren was a little general on the basketball team. He ran the whole show. He was a coach on the floor, one of the smartest point guards I've ever seen. And he could shoot it, he could handle it, he could pass it, and he knew to get the ball to Kareem. Sure. But Mike was a terrific player. And I know him well. We're very, very good friends today.
That's great.
And he was really a catalyst that really got a lot of things started. He's been one of the great Bruins of all time. As loyal, and he's really a good player. You got Warren and Allen in the backcourt and Shackelford on the wing, and you got to guard those guys. And then Kareem, that was a good group.
And then one other thing, I heard a story, you can confirm this. We all know Jamal Wilkes had a crazy free throw where he brought it around his head. And the story was he wore a hat when he played pickup, and that's why he shot it that way. Can you confirm that?
I can't confirm that because I don't know that. But I do know that I was the head coach at Morningside High School, and we were 1, 2, 3 in the CIF, and we played them in the CIF playoffs. And right. We led for 31 minutes, and then Jamal said, "You are not winning this game," and we didn't. Boy, it was really good. And I asked Coach Wooden about that, and he said, he did wind up, but every time he ended up, his elbow was in the proper position.
Right.
When he was ready to shoot it, so he never said anything to change him. Quietly, if you really pin Coach Wooden down, he'd say that Jamal Wilkes was the ideal basketball player he's ever coached, the most ideal player he's ever coached. And the fact that you never had to say a word to him, academically, mentally, physically, emotionally, education, practice, everything. He was just a splendid guy.
That's great.
Coach, I want to ask you about, obviously relationships are so important to you. Jelani McCoy has talked about it. A lot of guys have talked about it. And Bill obviously has talked about it every chance he gets about Coach Wooden, the impact that he had on his life. And so how was he across the board with people, and did people have a hard time with his style at first, but then they understood it later kind of thing, or did they understand it right from the jump? Sports Deli is sponsored by City Lokes, CITYLOCS. You can find them online at citylokes.com, where you can go and make your own personalized license plate hats. They're so cool. You got to check them out. And don't forget to enter the code TheSportsDeli at checkout for your special 10% discount. And now back to this incredible interview right here in the Sports Deli.
Well, you have to understand that the guys that, when I was a high school coach at Morningside, John Wooden was the coach at UCLA, and he had 15 scholarships, but he also had 7 tuition waivers that he could give players. They had so much talent that sometimes guys you never heard of that were absolutely. There was a guy named Gary Vitito. That's one of the real good players I've ever seen play, and he never got a chance to play for Coach. And you know, if you get in Coach's doghouse, you don't have a chance. But he had 22 really, really good players, and he never said it, and no one ever said it. But if he's got them, the other teams don't have them. Now you understand that some really, really good players went to UCLA and never got off the bench. And there were some guys that were bitter for years about it until they grew up, had children, became a man, and understood the life lessons that Coach Wooden was teaching at the time. And I'll go back to, they used to have a banquet. And one of the players, a great player who never got in very much at all, got up and at the banquet and just ripped Coach Wooden. Well, they never had any banquets after that. Wow. And so there were some guys that you know, never got a chance to play and were bitter about it. But they always have all come around and understood the man, and it was amazing. It was amazing. I mean, you know, you think once you build a monster, you got to feed it, and he had to feed that monster for 12 years, and boy, it was something. It was hungry. It was hungry.
So a big part of obviously what he lived by on and off the court was the pyramid of success. And this one was given to me by Lav. John Wooden obviously signed it, but you can't see it probably because it's. But you know,
you don't have to say anything. I know about heart.
But talk about, because people don't know about it now. You know, like people that grew up in your era and his era, that, you know, they know about it. But what's, if you were going to summarize, because every coach has to create a culture when you're coaching and get people to buy in. And this was his buy-in on and off the court. It wasn't just something that was on the court. It was something to live by.
Well, Coach Wooden was an English teacher, and there weren't the great recruiting rules that there are today. You know, recruiting, he didn't go out and recruit and travel cross country and recruit in his day. And so he had a lot of time in the summer where he always said, I took one part of the game every summer and tried to improve in it. But also he had time to, and he started playing with the Pyramid of Success, I think at South Bend Central High School when he was a high school coach. And then it just took him years and years to get it exactly the way he wanted it, to get the definition of success, which is peace of mind, which is at the top of that. And, you know, he put the cornerstones of enthusiasm and industriousness, which is the cornerstones of anything you build. You got to have the corner where they're solid and the foundation's good. And he just played with it and put all the parts to it that he felt were needed to be a successful kind of thing. And once he was successful, you know, he people wanted a copy of it. People wanted to know. And as you said, he's touched all walks of life: businessmen, CEOs, coaches, women's coaches, tennis coaches, announcers. Everywhere I go, people mention John Wooden, and what a tribute to him, because you know, he left a legacy that's unmatched by anyone.
What was the toughest component to get the buy-in?
Well, certainly, you know, everybody wants to play, and you know, and young kids sometimes say, hey, that's a lot of bull. That's a bunch of malarkey. That's a bunch of this and that. And sometimes, you know, he was the kind of guy that Hooch would have to shave that ugly looking goatee you got there to play for him. And a lot of people know the story of Walton, and his senior year comes in, and he's got long hair and beard, and he's down there shooting the first day, and coach goes down there and says, Bill, he says, the rules. He says, Coach, that doesn't make any difference how I play. I still play for you. He says, yes, Bill, you're right. And, Bill, I really like the fact that you stand up for your rights. And he says, just going to be a shame and none of the people at UCLA can see you play this year. Who wouldn't have unbelievable stature that I don't know that some coaches, there are very few coaches could do today what he did. And I remember him doing that to Sidney Wicks too. Sidney thought he was, Sidney came in from Hamilton High School and he had to go to Santa Monica City College. And he came in, he was so good. He was 6'9", about 260, and like quick as a cat, could jump. And Coach Wooden didn't start him his sophomore year. His first year, he didn't start him. And Sidney would go up to Coach and say, Coach, I'm better than so-and-so. I'm better than so-and-so. The coach would say, Sidney, the 5 best players don't always make the best team. And he sat him on the bench, boy. And I tell you, boy, his junior and senior year was that guy hungry. And boy, did he turn into a tremendous player. But I don't know a lot of coaches that could get away with all that today. He had great, great, great stature. And it's unbelievable.
Coach, transitioning to what's going on today, how do you think Coach Wooden and then even yourself would handle what's going on now with the transfer portal? I mean, we just talked about Kareem didn't even play his freshman year. No one could back then. Most of these high school guys don't know that. And then here you had Sidney Wicks, one of the greatest high school players coming out at that time, pretty much sitting his sophomore year. Today, how would you handle that? How do you think Coach Wooden would handle what's now become this transfer portal where there's 2,000? There's more kids in the portal than there probably are scholarships available.
Sports Deli is sponsored by PSK Collective. Be inspired in PSK. Their clothing line promotes inclusivity, empowerment, and equality. And you can find them online at Kohl's.com, Walmart.com, TJMax.com, Lids.com, and now Target.com. And now back to this incredible interview right here in the Sports Deli.
Well, I'll tell you something. If the portal were there today, Coach Wooden could pick anybody he wanted. They'd all want to come play for him.
That makes sense, yeah.
Because their parents would understand that that's where they want them to go to play for something like that. I mean, that'd be great. That's the worst thing I've encountered since I've come back in coaching is the transfer portal. I mean, it's absolutely deplorable in my mind. It takes away any kind of loyalty you've ever had. And they say, well, the coach can leave, but there's only 350 Division I schools, and the coaches have their reasons. But there are 1,500 guys in the portal. Guys are bailing and doing this, and I don't know what they're looking for, but it's crazy out there right now.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, the players this year got a second year, a second senior year, or an extra year, and then it affects.
That really, 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 really hurts the seniors in high school this year.
Right.
There's not, unless you're an exceptional freshman, you're not getting recruited.
Nope.
Actually, PJ Carlissimo was on with Chris Russo on the Mad Dog Radio, and his son's a senior in Seattle. And he told his son he couldn't have picked a worse year to be a senior in high school. And they said nobody's coming to the games, even for the big time players, because the two things are coming up. They didn't know how many kids are coming back to Mike's point, 6th senior year or 5th senior year, and they didn't know what the transfer portal was going to be like. So they're all scared to make commitments that they can't honor.
Plus, you never got a chance to watch anybody play.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. On top of it.
Hard to take a guy that you haven't seen, I used to tell them, I want to put my eyes on them. I want our staff to put our eyes on guys, not just because when you watch a guy on tape, you never know what the competition's like. How good is the competition?
Right.
And even who could make a basket against some players. But you want to put your eyes on players. So no one got a chance to see anybody this year. It was just crazy.
I know.
Coach roasted me.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got a couple of quotes here, Coach. I want you to pick from the Sports Deli list of quotes that are from John Wooden, which one you want to grapple with first. So I'll start with 4, and then you go ahead and extrapolate on whichever quote you choose. Do not let what you cannot do interfere with what you can do. Success is peace of mind, which is a direct result of self-satisfaction and knowing you made the effort to become the best of which you are capable. Make each day your masterpiece, or listen if you want to be heard.
I would pick success because I learned from Coach Wooden that he never, ever, ever, and I did the same thing. I never talked about winning the game. I talked about doing your best. Give me your best effort. That's all I ask for you. Go in after the game, look in the mirror and say, whew, I busted my butt. I did the very best I could. And that's all as a coach you can ask of a young person.
Okay, next set of quotes. Whatever you do in life, surround yourself with smart people who will argue with you. Consider the rights of others before your own feelings and the feelings of others before your own rights. Or love is the most important thing in the world. Hate we should remove from the dictionary.
Love, not even close. Because, you know, I learned from him again. I probably never finished practice without telling my guys I love them and how proud I was of them. And some days you don't have it. Some days you just didn't have your legs today. And you didn't give me the effort that you can give, but you know, I still like you and I want you to come back tomorrow and play a little bit harder. I learned from him to take no, not, and never out of my vocabulary when I'm on the floor. Now that took me about 7-8 years to master that. But boy, I tell you, praise works. Praise works. And like when you'd give a guy a comment who would make a mistake, he says, here at UCLA, we do it this way, is a positive statement. You can yell it as loud as you want. Son, to make the same mistake over and over is embarrassing, is a positive statement because you don't use a negative. And I learned that from him, and it worked wonders for me, wonders. Praise works, do it. You know, nowhere in the history of the world give you the right to dehumanize a young person and tell him he stinks, he's lousy, he can't play. And the worst thing you can do is say, no, don't, you can't do it that way, or something like that. And every time you use a negative, you'll see a young person's chin go on his chest and he puts his head down. And now you got to build him back up.
Well, that's amazing because it was different back then and it was more accepted to actually just, do as I say. And I had a club basketball game yesterday and we were playing somebody and I wasn't really paying attention. I'm trying to coach the girls and the guys, we had 2 games. And I was told afterwards from the parents that this coach was all over the girls from the tip. And, I coached men 15 years and this is my 15th year on the women's side. And I took my player out yesterday because she had 2 balls deflected. And it's one of my pet peeves because it shows a lack of preparation before the actual pass. If you're going to get a ball deflected, there's exceptions. And so I pulled her out. She was going to go sit on the bench. And I put my arm around her. And I said, what do we do in training? And my point is, if you don't give them the tool, even if you're upset with them, to put in their toolbox, and you haven't worked on it since October, then it's your fault as the coach for not giving them the proper tools.
I was a coach at Georgia. We had a women's coach named Andy Landers, and he always practiced before I did. So I'd come out maybe 15 minutes. Our team would be out there, getting ready. And I mean, he yelled and screamed at those girls like I couldn't believe it. But boy, he was successful, and they played hard for him, and they loved him, and he got a lot out of them. So he had his own way. There's a lot of ways to cook the chicken in the kitchen. There's a lot of ways.
There is, yeah. Well, I think now we're just living in a different time. You're just going to be exposed, and you can't compromise.
Hoot, you say that. You say that. And this is my 6th decade coaching. And I found the players to be no different. Everybody wants to be coached, taught, treated properly, worked hard. They want to win. They want to be successful. They may want it a little quicker than before, yes. And accountability maybe has slipped a little bit. I'll never forget when they made freshmen eligible. That just started the trend right there, because guys would come to college and sit out their first year. Second year, they'd sit on the bench and expect to play. And by their junior year, they're ready to play and they expect to play. And boy, now freshmen, they come in, they have that feeling that you had as a junior. And that's the only difference I see in college today, because, every guy wants to be taught and coached and disciplined and treated fairly and worked hard. And I'll tell you, the harder we work our team, the more you get out of them if you're doing it in the proper way.
I don't think a lot of coaches did it in the proper way back then. I think they're more aware of some of their flaws or the ways of the past. And I think they're trying to evolve and have more depth to who they are as a coach and have more responsibility in other areas.
There's as many good ones then as there is now, because I see a lack of fundamental coaching in basketball today.
I agree.
A tremendous lack of fundamentals.
Yeah, it's a different game.
The difference, I'll tell you, Hoot, the difference is I grew up as an English teacher. I taught in the classroom. And when you can become a coach, you are a teacher of basketball. The floor is an extension of the classroom. You have methods of how to teach. You got a knowledge of the subject matter. You got motivation and discipline. You're teaching tools. They will learn 10% when they see it, and 20% when they hear it, but 70% when they do it. Mm-hmm. And the laws of learning are explanation, demonstration, correction, and repetition. And when you understand that you're a teacher of basketball, a lot of guys are screen and roll teachers, and that's all they know, because that's all they've ever done. And I see a lot of lack of, kids come down today, and instead of going for a layup, they'll stop and shoot a three. And I'll tell you something, I'll win 80% of my games if I make all my threes, and you shoot nothing but threes, and I may shoot nothing but twos, because the high school and college game's a medium range jump shooting game. A lot of guys will disagree with that. And, but that's kind of the way Coach was. And that's all I know, because that's what I learned from him.
So one of the things that I do in my private training with my kids is I want them to learn how to win, and I want them to change the narrative of being afraid of stress or perceived stress or self-inflicted stress to excitement. Like in the old days, I was so scared if someone guarded me closely, I didn't know what I was going to do with myself. And once I learned how to put the correct tools in the toolbox, I wanted someone to guard me closely. I wanted someone to talk trash. I wanted someone to challenge me, because now you got these little games within the game, and it makes it exciting. So how did Coach Wooden and you help them build their confidence? Because there's always a scenario you can't perfectly help them train for last 2 minutes of a game, free throws to win the game, something out of a timeout. How did you get them to feel confident that you trusted them, in those situations? Sports Deli is sponsored by Moolah Kicks. Moolah is MOOLAH, like money, moolah, and kicks like shoes, one word. You can find them online at moolahkicks.com. And it's the first ever female only brand basketball shoe. So it's a shout out to the basketball street culture, and it is also about fighting social injustice and gender inequality worldwide and here in the United States. And again, you can find them at moolahkicks.com. And now back to this incredible interview right here in the Sports Deli.
When you are practiced, planned, and prepared, you'll perform. And I worked hard on getting my team being well practiced, well planned, and well prepared.
And that was Coach Wooden's.
And we did it from 3 to 5:30 every day on the floor, not during the game.
Right.
You know, like up and screaming and yelling and coaching and moving. They said, "Boy, he's coaching." Well, I don't know about that. You coach your team from 3 to 5:30 every day in practice. And once a game starts, Coach always said, "My job's over." And you make adjustments, you make substitutions, you call timeout. Yeah, you do a little coaching, but the execution part comes from the practice sessions.
Absolutely. Go ahead, John.
Coach, we're sitting here today on July 1st, which has now become the wild, wild west day of NCAA athletics, because now, I don't know if you would ever thought you would see the day where students could get their own sponsorship and have to sign their own deals. And one of the impetus for this was Ed O'Bannon. And talk about how proud you are of Ed for getting this going. And then what's your thought on what the future of NCAA Division I athletics is now with these young people being able to get, I mean, I can't tell you, I was reading ESPN before getting here, probably 50 to 100 kids went to New York City today to sign a deal with some company. You know, two twin young ladies from Fresno State. It doesn't have to be the biggest time basketball. Did a deal either for T-Mobile or something for like 50,000. I mean, these are real deals going on. And I'm just curious your thoughts on both what Ed's been able to do through, you know, all his off the court since leaving the game, and then where the future of NCAA Division I basketball is going to be now, without that athletes are able to garner some more money.
You know, Ed O'Bannon was part of the first litigation against the NCAA for this. And he saw that what happened when we won the national championship, you know, our bookstore made over $10 million selling O'Bannon jerseys and Edney jerseys and the player. Wow. And then what the catalyst was he saw himself on Madden and his number 31 and his likeness and image, and they're making a fortune and he's not getting anything. Well, unfortunately, he's not going to gain from any of this, but he hopes somebody does. And you couldn't be more proud of the guy, because it is right. It is right what he did. And NCAA has been wrong for so long, and they won't admit it because, you know, they like getting all the money. And sad. I don't know how it's going to turn out. I just don't know the depth of how far people will go. And the bad thing is, and I admire that they can sign deals, but I hope it's not encouraging deals, encouraging people to come to school and recruiting and think, I'll give you this, I'll give you that, and I'll get you this deal, I'll get you that deal. And it's probably going to be that, but I don't know how they can pay everybody, every football and basketball player and baseball player. I mean, we'll see. It's going to be really interesting.
And I mean, how much do you blame the NCAA for just being so, I mean, they literally were trying to set a policy up until like probably midnight last night, just putting their head, I mean, my line to Hoot is that, you know, in like Uber and Lyft world, the NCAA has been running a taxi stand, that they're 5 to 10 years behind. They're complete denial. I mean, if you look at all these colleges and universities, like I went to South Carolina for my master's degree. And literally at 9 a.m. this morning, they sent me, as an alum, and I have season tickets for some sporting events. They sent me an email in incredible detail of what this means for their athletic department. They've hired, I think it's API or some company. My point is, they've been planning this for a year or two. You just didn't send this out on Monday morning in a staff meeting. Meanwhile, the NCAA, it's obvious, had no plan. whatsoever. And and I don't know what any take you have.
They spend all their time trying to decelerate the thing and
Right.
hoping it wouldn't go instead of getting on board and trying to find a solution. Then they go to Congress, want Congress to get the solution, and they don't have one. So
Right.
you're right. They're a taxi stand, and not a good one.
Yeah. Interesting.
Coach, what was Coach Wooden's favorite meal when you would go to Coco's?
He would have 1 egg and 2 slices of bacon. Now the bacon had to be so well done that it could almost stand up alone by itself. 1 piece of toast. He was a creature of habit. He sat in the same booth, the same seat, the same breakfast, and he did change venues once in a while. Coco's was his first place, and then he ended up at Vips. Ventura Boulevard there.
Wow.
Just and he had his group, and there were a lot of friends that came and people that came, but all the waiters and waitresses knew him. I mean, everybody knew him. I'll never forget one time I called him. Nell had passed away. My wife and I called him and said, "Well, I'll take you to the UCLA football game." So I picked him up at 10 o'clock in the morning. And we went up to the football game in the afternoon and, hung around the Rose Bowl and all that, and got back, and we came back and we stopped in the valley. We're going to have dinner. And he walks up to the Mater Dei right there, and he says, table. And he says, "Can I have your name?" He says, "John Wooden." And the guy said, "Yeah, sure. You're John Wooden." Oh, it was funny. But boy, I tell you, I spent 10, 12 hours with him, and we never talked basketball one time. Just an amazing source of knowledge and understanding. He was a great Abraham Lincoln fan, and he would quote Lincoln and know almost everything about Lincoln that there was. And a couple of years ago, wife and I went to DC with a group, and we went to the theater where Lincoln was shot, and I couldn't get out of there. He had posters everywhere of things he was thinking about during the war, and every day he would go from one day to the next, what was happening, what he was thinking about. And it was one of the most fascinating days I've spent in a long time. Talk about politics. Well, there were politics back then the same as they are today. And
he voted for a couple of Republicans, but he was more of a liberal.
We never talked politics. We never did.
Wow.
I'm thinking, I don't know that we ever talked politics.
But he was so interested in religion, like Lav had said. Did you guys talk about that?
Well, he was very religious, and he had a cross that he carried with him all the time. And I think he went to church every Sunday, and after every Sunday he'd go out to the grave of Nell. And I'll tell you a little thing. He, in his bed, he never took the covers down on her side, and he kept her nightgown laid across the bed on the side. He just slept on one side all the time.
Wow.
Yeah, he was
Amazing relationship.
My wife calls me a creature of habit, but he's really a creature of habit. I mean, he did the same thing over and over. But boy, he was a loyal individual.
How did you ever talk to him about his parents? You guys were obviously both teachers.
Oh yeah.
Where did he get all these? He was, he enlisted in the service, obviously, and then he came back and his path changed. He would have been a high school coach forever, as as we've talked about. But how did he learn all these philosophies back then?
Well, there was no television in his day.
Right.
Radio was very limited. And his father was named Joshua, and they used to sit by the fireside, and his father would read to them by the firelight and tell them stories and everything he got from Every Day's a Masterpiece. Everything he got from his father, and really admired him. And that got him thinking about the pyramid of success and things like that. I've met his brothers.
Wow.
And been to Martinsburg, Indiana, and I'd sit in his apartment at 90 years old, and he would tell me stories about playing against, he called him Slim something. In 1927, Slim was on the other team, and he would describe the play and everything. And they had the center court jump then, and his memory was never faded. It was sharp all the way up until he passed away.
Wow. You know how you talked about you would go into the neighborhoods of the Black and brown community and play a couple times a week when you were growing up, and they would come into your neighborhood. Did he have experiences? Because he's obviously a little bit older than you with African Americans when he was growing up.
Well, I'll tell you the story. He was a coach at Indiana State.
Right.
And they won the championship in their league, and they advanced to the NAIA tournament. And they had a black player on their team. And the NAIA called and said the black player could not stay in the same hotel. And he pulled his team the first year out of the tournament.
Wow.
And did not go.
Never heard that before.
The second year, they did the same thing, and the NAIA relented and let the guy stay in a hotel, so he played in the tournament.
Wow.
But he refused to go the first year.
Wow. Incredible. John, you got anything else before?
No, let's go to this or that.
Well, I only have a couple because it was supposed to be for Coach Wooden. What was his favorite music, Coach? Did he have a favorite genre?
Never listened to a lot of music with him. Never talked about things like that. It was just just life and things, and some basketball and personnel and people and.
Actually, Coach, curious, just to follow up, of the coaches out there now, who do you think comes closest, or both in personality and demeanor, as well as maybe philosophy, coaching wise, that you see in college basketball now or in the pros that reminds you a little bit of Wooden? No one is going to be him, but has some of the traits that you looked for that you see either in Wooden or other coaches that you've worked with?
One I would say would be Jay Wright.
Yeah,
I think Jay Wright has probably done a better job the last 5 years than any coach around.
I would agree.
Yeah. You've been watching the NBA playoffs, Coach?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I am. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's a survival of the fittest. Who's going to stay healthy? That's who's going to win it. The team that stays healthy. And before we came on, I was watching Milwaukee and Atlanta, and Young's not playing, and Giannis isn't playing, and watched last night, and Leonard didn't play. Well, how much fun is that?
Yeah.
Not watching your players play. I'll tell you, if Kawhi Leonard would have played, I think the Clippers would have won it all. But he didn't play. So, someone asked me, who's going to win it all? I said, the team that's the healthiest. And so far, the Phoenix has stayed relatively injury-free.
Yeah.
So if Coach Wooden was coaching, would he be running the high post?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, he adjusted it when he got Kareem and Bill. He went to a 1-3-1, and Jamal, during Walton's time, Jamal would change from one side post to the other side post. And when Jamal was over here, Walton was over on the low block opposite. And when Jamal was over here, he was on that side opposite. And they tried to run the duck to Walton every single time. And if they'd front him, they would do some things. And then Jamal could take his guy one-on-one because he had a whole lane wide open. And I tell you what, when he had Jabbar and Walton, the spacing was absolutely incredible. And they were good. They were good. They were so good.
Yeah, it's hard for me to watch pick and roll after pick and roll, but the range of the shooters now is just mind blowing. I just can't even believe.
I think told you this before. I think the 3-point shot has come and gone, and it's outworked its usefulness. I mean, everybody can shoot it. It can shoot it with range, and to me, that's not basketball. That's not give and go. That's not pressure on the ball. That's not pushing things. That's not, the NBA, get a high screen and roll, 2 guys in the corner, roll the center of the basket, step the other guy up, and see what you get. And you got a guy like Chris Paul. It's fun. It was fun last night, boy. He was absolute for a 36-year-old man. He was absolutely brilliant. Yep. Brilliant. Couldn't be more happy. He's a great guy. I love Chris. I was with him here with the Clippers for 6 years. I think he was here. Yeah. He treated me good, and he's a great kid, great young guy.
How impressed were you with Baylor this year and their defense especially?
Scott Drew was assistant to Homer Drew, who I consider one of the best passing game coaches that I've ever watched coach. He was an assistant along with my son, Jim Harrick, and Scott Drew were assistants to their dad when Bryce Drew was on the team.
That's right.
And my Rhode Island team played them and in the Sweet 16 game, and we beat them in St. Louis to go to the Elite Eight. But Scott Drew has gone down to Baylor, spent 15 years, recruits like nobody I've ever seen to Baylor. And his team was just absolutely nails this year. Boy, they guarded. They were big and strong and nasty and ugly and physical and tough and shoot it. They were really, really good, really good. And they primed at the right time. And I'm not sure if Gonzaga had not played UCLA that kind of game and kind of lost just a step of their luster. I'm not sure they had 2 weeks rest. They could have beaten Baylor. Baylor was really good. Yeah. And hats off to Scott because he's developed into a very good basketball coach.
That place was a disaster before he got there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Last question. I think I asked you this before when you were on, but how proud are you of Lamar Odom and what he's done to reinvent himself after his near-death experience?
Well, I've had the pleasure of visiting with him 3 or 4 times. I saw him when he was dancing on the Star. He can't dance, but he was good. He was, what I liked about him was healthy. He was working really hard to regain all his faculties physically, mentally, and emotionally, and he was on the right path. And I just wish the best for him. He's a great young guy, and here's a guy who grew up and never had a mother, father was an addict, and never had anyone to set him down. And
we finally found our dream home.
Put him, kiss him goodnight when he went to bed, or feed him, or have a place for him to study, and just never had a mother to hug him and love him. And I love the guy. We're really tight. I have a great appreciation for him, and I wish him well.
That's awesome. Well, Coach, I'm sorry about the goatee. I promise if you come out a third time.
I said wouldn't would get mad, not me.
Well, we can't thank you enough for coming in, talking a little Wizard of Westwood, and glad you're doing well. Whatever you decide to do next year, wish you nothing but good health and success, and enjoy the rest of the playoffs, and nothing but the utmost respect and love for you. And my memories of camp with you, and Lav and Mark and Romar and who's the director of basketball, Doug and Erickson. Yeah, I mean, it stays with me, and that's when I got my career started as a coach, and it's been 30 years, and it's just things coming full circle to bring you back on again to talk about the greatest coach in the history of the game is truly an honor. So thanks,
John. You and Hoot, thanks a lot for
having me. Coach. Great seeing you.
All right, buddy.
Take care.
All right,
take care.
Talk to you soon. All right, bye-bye.
That's cool. One of my colleagues at work, who I'm very good friends with, played football at UCLA in the 70s.
Wow.
Yeah. His roommate was Mike Warren.
Wow.
And so Mike Warren's do it to this day. And so I'm a huge, he gives me an update. Mike Warren has actually probably made more money than probably half the basketball guys ever. He never played a ball, but he went into, he was on Hill Street Blues.
Yeah.
And then he went into producing, and then he's like he's pseudo special assistant to the president. Basically, they just call him up when shit goes down.
Yeah.
But it's a very positive. I mean, in Wooden, we didn't talk about it here, but even the football guys revered Wooden, in the sense that he would talk to them, and the football guys and basketball guys all hung out. And so it's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
So cool, man.
All right, brother. I appreciate you jumping on. That was awesome.
Yep.
All right, man. Can't thank Coach Harrick and Dr. J for coming back into the Sports Deli and honoring us with their presence, especially Coach Harrick. And Coach K had a game tonight up in Seattle. But awesome stuff, talking the Wizard of Westwood. And we hope you enjoyed listening to Coach Harrick again. Remember, you can always send us an email to thesportsdeli@gmail.com. Remember, Black Lives Matter. Please mask up if you haven't had your vaccine yet. Stop Asian hate, and remember, it takes a village. For Dr. J and Coach K, I'm Hootie Hoot. Until next time, peace.